Welcome to Life by Design for Chiropractors, episode 59.
Welcome to Life by Design, the podcast for chiropractors. Here's your host, Dr. Jamie Richards.
Welcome to Life by Design for Chiropractors, the voice of reason in chiropractic. I'm your host, Dr. Jamie Richards, and today myself and Dr. Cratio Jug deal with a question we get on a very repetitive basis. And that question is, how do you transition a practice from second paradigm chiropractic to third paradigm chiropractic? If you're a listener to the show, or if you're new to the show, you'll come to find out that third paradigm chiropractic is the type of chiropractic approach to chiropractic that we advise, recommend, and think is the best way to practice chiropractic. Now, that doesn't mean that other ways aren't good, that other ways aren't helping people. It just means that that's what we think, and that's our opinion. And of course, that means we're going to get questions. What do you do if you have a practice that's already a second paradigm chiropractic, or you buy a second paradigm chiropractic practice? How do you make that transition? It's not an easy one, but I think it's very worthwhile. And on today's episode, we'll tell you exactly how to do it. So enjoy today's episode of Life by Design for Chiropractors.
Welcome back to Life by Design for Chiropractors, Dr. Cratio Jug. Very happy to be here. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year. All the best.
Yeah, this is a great time of year. I'm not exactly sure when people are going to hear this episode. Cratio might be in the new year. So whenever you do hear this, Happy New Year. And hopefully back to previous episodes of the podcast, make sure you've scheduled and completed your annual planning and your strategy session. I know, Cratio, you've probably done yours or have yours in the works.
Oh, absolutely. It is by far, because I'm kind of like you, Jamie. I'm very ADHD. Mm-hmm. So I really appreciate the 90-day time frame seems to be the best for us, because it gives me enough time to pivot if something's not going the way that I like after a quarter.
Yeah, no, it is. It's good. I mean, this time of year, I love the big picture annual stuff. So I'm excited. Actually, today I'm going to finish mine up. I posted, so if anybody didn't see it, I posted my whiteboard/yellow board from the office, which has a lot of the details from our annual planning on it. If you want to get a chance to look at that, you can see it on I think it's on the Dr. Jamie Facebook page, also on my Instagram account if you want to check that out and see the picture there. But today is all about finishing up the budgets, and it's all about doing the comparisons. So this is exciting. We pull up the success surveillance system, and I actually pop everything into the comparison file, and it just, it's fun to look at the growth of the practice over the last couple of years and to look at trends. I love that kind of geeky, analytical type stuff. So looking forward to that today.
Or more interesting, and I know how your brain works, and I know that this might be scary for people listening, more fun would be to see downtrends in some areas.
For sure.
Right? So then you're like, oh my God, I never thought of that.
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, we saw that in the early stages of this practice, and, early on, still carrying over a few of the systems and habits from my previous practice, which, going back, there was lots of reasons why they were in there. They needed to be fixed and changed. And I saw those creeping into this practice early. So we caught them really early, fixed them. And it's nice to see those trends happening. But again, this is why making sure that you're using something like the success surveillance system is so important. So, Cratio, today we're talking about a really interesting conversation. And we get this question from time to time, because obviously this is what we talk about on Life by Design for Chiropractors. We talk about the difference between a second paradigm chiropractic practice and a third paradigm chiropractic practice. And, one of the questions we get, this is actually from one of the doctors we really enjoy working with, is how do you transition a practice that already exists? So sometimes we'll deal with clients who are buying an existing practice, or they've had their own practice for a period of time, and then they get on to Life by Design for Chiropractors and start to think, man, I really love to practice in this model. This isn't my practice, or this isn't the practice I bought. What do I do? So, I'm sure you get this in some of the questions you receive too.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is the majority of people, right? Like most people are not like us. They don't want to start from zero. I don't blame you for not wanting to start from zero. That was quite an experience, let me say.
Yeah, I do. And I think that seeing what I've seen with different clients and their ability to actually transition this following some of these principles, if I had to do it again and I had the ability to buy an existing practice, I probably would have done that.
Me too. That's exactly what I'm saying. I'm saying starting from zero was very challenging. At least this way, like there's revenue coming in already. You know, that's a much safer, happier place to be.
Yeah, I agree. And so many practices fall within the second paradigm model, right? This is, as you said, the vast majority of chiropractors that exist. So, you know, why don't we start off with talking about the difference between second and third paradigm, and then we'll go through some of the pros and cons of each, because we're not suggesting that, you know, the model that we practice in this third paradigm chiropractic model, you know, it's all rainbows and butterflies and, you know, it's the only way that you could practice. Now, clearly we think it's the best way to practice and we have those reasons, but, you know, I'm happy to share some of the challenges and also the pros of a second paradigm practice. So we'll get to that. And then we'll share with you guys 5 principles to begin this transition. We're not going to get too much into the tactics today. And I mean, obviously the tactics are just listen to the podcast and follow the previous 50 podcasts that were done and start to kind of go down that path. But Horatio, second, third paradigm, I'll hit this really quick and then we'll jump over to you for some of the pros of second paradigm. You know, this is really back to one of our mentors, Reggie Gold, talked about the difference between first, second, and third. We've discussed this on numerous podcasts before. But in a nutshell, a second paradigm practice is really the model that most chiropractors practice. It's the one that says, Mrs. Jones, I know the cause of your problem. It's subluxation. And everything is built around that idea of, okay, there's a subluxation. This is causing your shoulder pain. Or you have a subluxation at T4. That's why you have a shoulder problem. You have a subluxation at T8. That's why you have a digestive problem. And we're going to correct the subluxation, and that problem's going to go away. And chiropractic is amazing. And that's the model. And we'll talk about pros and cons in a second. Third paradigm chiropractic says, Mrs. Jones, you have a subluxation, period. And that subluxation is not good for you. It's probably affecting you in lots of different ways that you know, and it might be related to your digestive problem or your shoulder problem, but it's also affecting you in tons of different ways that at this point you have no idea about. And the point is, subluxation is bad. It affects every aspect of human function, human potential, and human performance. Some in many ways that people can recognize, but in tons of ways that they don't. And so that's essentially the difference, Horatio, unless you want to add any notes to that.
Yeah, I do actually. Is number one, just a bigger preframe. We're not saying that that this is a better model, right? Like I'm okay with people practicing however they want to practice. I'm not on my high horse here thinking that third paradigm chiropractic is for everybody. And number two, so you know, this is what we're saying is that subluxation is related to every symptom, condition, function of the body. We just don't know what the percentage is. Right? So if you have a headache and you're subluxated, of course the subluxation is contributing to the headache in some way, but it could be 0.001% or it could be 95%. We just don't know. And there's no way to find out. But you're still better off on subluxated.
Right. And because if you don't have a symptom or you don't have a headache, but you have a subluxation, that subluxation in and of itself is a problem.
A big problem.
Exactly. And so it's funny how sometimes I love when chiropractors say, oh, I see a lot of people who don't have problems. And I think to myself, well, then what the hell are you doing?
Right. Right. Good point. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, what are you doing? If you don't have a problem, then what are you doing? They have a problem.
You know, we'll get to that in the principles, but that's a really massive belief.
Yeah. No, it's absolutely true. So let's talk about some of the pros. You know, we're saying that, you know, I think to expand on what you were saying, I think what Horatio is saying is that we're not judging which approach you want to take. I do think we are saying that third paradigm is a better way to practice. So I don't want to say that it's not better, because I do think that it is better and we have our reasons why. What I am suggesting, though, is if you think second paradigm is better, then you should practice the second paradigm model.
Yes.
Right?
That's a good clarification.
Like whatever you think is better is what you should do. But if you think a third paradigm model is better and you're in a second paradigm model, then I think there's going to be some issues that are going to be affecting you. And we'll talk about those when we get to the principles. So pros of second paradigm chiropractic, Horatio?
It's an easier model. It's the one that's accepted by the majority of the market. Right. Probably the biggest pro to this model.
Yeah, I mean, when you talk about some of the marketing principles, you know, have a market. The market accepts, in general, that they have a problem that may be related to the spine, and fixing the spine problem may make their other problem go away.
Right.
And so obviously
they know it's going to take a certain number of visits,
correct,
right?
Yeah, and, but that goes for both models. People recognize it's not going to happen overnight. And I see that more and more. I don't see a lot of people, and again, partly because of our marketing for sure, but, even someone who comes in and they have an acute situation. I had a case yesterday actually came in, lower back pain, referred in, and, he's like, I'm going on a snowmobile trip this week. I don't know if there's something you could do today, and I'd really love to get through it. I said, and I'm not, explicit in the sense that there's no way I could do anything. I walked them through the thought process, and I said, I would love to be able to do something for you today. So I want you to think about it like this. If you went to your physician and he had gone, I said, did he do tests? They said, yeah. Wouldn't it have been weird if he just did something without actually testing you and seeing what the test looked like? He goes, oh, yeah, I guess that makes sense. So, I think that in general, people recognize that. They recognize, that the spine especially could have something to do with what they're feeling, especially when it comes to symptomatology to do with pain. So I don't think that's a counterculture idea. On the surface, it appears logical, and that's, an extension of that concept. They go, oh, right. So, the nerves go here. I have a digestive problem. These nerves go here, and you're telling me I have a problem at this part of my spine. Oh, well, of course, that's why I have a digestive problem. And, we set ourselves up in a second paradigm model to say, yeah, that's right. That is why you have a digestive problem. It's an easier yes.
Right. Absolutely.
Now, we were saying this in the pre-show, an interesting thought as well is it does fit with the chiropractic market, meaning, the other chiropractors. It's called the old boys club or girls club, or, you're not going to be looked at as an outlier if you say subluxation is the cause of these problems. We correct subluxations and your problem goes away. I mean, everybody's going to agree with that. That's essentially what most, practice management, most of the speakers are actually talking about. It's what most of the schools communicate for the most part. And of course, it's not cut and dry. There's communication components that still have some third paradigm pieces in it, but there's always that second paradigm position, right? Is, subluxation is the cause of your problem, and we're going to correct the cause of your problem, and then your problem's going to go away. And again, third paradigm model is subluxation is the problem. The other stuff isn't really the problem. It's the effect from the problem.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, yes, this definitely gets you the ticket into the socially accepted chiropractic circles of the quote unquote old boys club.
So what would then, based on that, what do you think would be some of the struggles of a second paradigm chiropractic practice?
Sure. Well, I mean, to put it out bluntly, it's not true. Subluxation is not the cause, right?
Of every problem. That's right.
Right. Like that's just always, I mean, that was looking back and remembering, because I think it's a fair transition to go through second paradigm to third paradigm. Mm-hmm. And that's just what never sat with me well. I just couldn't stomach that because I spent time with lots of chiropractors and, the message was, well, there's a subluxation causing your problem. And they were unsubluxating these people and they still had problems.
Right. And,
right? It just never sat well.
Well, and if their symptoms or conditions didn't go away, the thought process never was, oh, well, maybe this isn't true. It was, well, maybe I'm not doing it right.
Right. And hence and now to extrapolate that, hence all the techniques, right?
Right. And all the self-esteem issues.
Right. Upper cervical
perpetuates all of that.
Drop. Yes, of course.
Oh, well, I didn't get the listing right. Let's try the other side. Let's try a different listing.
Which could be true. There is something to making sure that you're specific and that you're actually able to remove a subluxation 100% there.
Well, yes, that's where having some type of objective measurement standard is important, but it's not, did their condition go away? That's not the standard. Right. And so obviously you get a sense of the self-esteem issues that happen when you say, man, maybe I'm not doing this right. It must be me. I mean, that's a major cost to you. And you were talking about this, Horatio, the bigger cost here with this contradiction in second paradigm is when you don't think about this and you have that, as you said, cognitive dissonance that is constantly there, that is at a big cost to you.
Oh, you're free to ignore the fact that it doesn't make you feel good. You are not free to not suffer those consequences, though.
Right.
It is going to get you. And this is not just a chiropractic problem. This is, I think, a human being problem. It is amazing to me how many people are willing to sell their souls and their minds for a few bucks instead of getting to their core beliefs and the actual truth, and then leveraging those and building a great life for themselves.
Sure. I mean, I have much more respect for someone who's willing to go that path and to, handle those challenges, who maybe on the surface appears less successful, whether it be financially or in other ways, but, they're taking on that, what I would consider kind of the point of life, which is really to, identify your values, identify what's true, and pursue those. I was having this conversation with Dana yesterday about, somebody she knows who was, dealing with some depression. And, when you look deeper at it, of course, you can try and patch that up, and you're looking at, taking chemicals and all these other things. And, my question was, are they pursuing their values? And I know it sounds, when you say that, it definitely sounds, esoteric, but it's not meant to be. It really is. I think about my own life. It would be impossible to be unhappy pursuing your values. Could you imagine pursuing your values and being unhappy? Like, that's just a contradiction in itself.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, when it comes to chiropractic, I just always, you want to talk about contradictions. Contradictory it is. It's very contradictory to tell your practice member that this is going to take time, we're getting to the root of the problem, when you are unwilling to get to the root of your problems.
Oh, yes. Oh, I mean, this is rampant in chiropractic. There's nothing that is more at the core when we're working with clients than their self-esteem, right? Then it's amazing to me, when you start with somebody and we talk about, okay, we start off with things like the success surveillance system. We start off things like the chiropractic productivity system. We start off with things like doing their perfect life planner. And they are like, I want to know what to do on day 2.
Right. Yes.
I'm like, I get that you want to know what to do on day 2, but it's not going to matter.
Yeah, but look at the culture, right? Let's just stick within chiropractic. We, on a pedestal, we put people, who are seeing, and don't get me wrong, I love the fact that there's people seeing and helping this many people, but in our minds, if you're seeing 2,500, you're more successful than the person that's seeing 200. If you have this type of house or you drive this type of car, nobody is going to put on Instagram, hey, had to sell my house because I felt really shitty about what I was doing, so now I'm going to rebuild my life the proper way. That doesn't get the Instagram post. That doesn't get people being like, oh, cool, I'm going to go hang out with that guy.
Right. Yeah. I mean, this is a whole podcast episode.
It's not sexy. It's ugly and it's dirty and it's nasty, but it needs to be done. Or you're going to be miserable. Who cares if you have a Lamborghini? Who cares if you have 25 bedrooms? You're not going to be happy.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's something that recognized myself over the last 10 years, that the pursuit of the number didn't make me as happy as the pursuit of the things that I valued most. Creating a strong business infrastructure, working with clients. I got a whole list of my own values, but the point is pursuing those has made me far happier than pursuing the number. And even though we hit some of those numbers, it didn't make me happy.
No, the messiness, the ugliness, the work of trying to figure it out is what the happiness is. To try to figure out, going back full circle to what you said, to try to figure out how to get to what you actually want. Yeah, right. I was listening to Rochelle's interview, right? Where the hell did we get this idea that 1,000 visits a week was successful in chiropractic?
Well, it was always, when we grew up in the profession, it was always 300, right? If all the high volume was 300 visits a week. I don't know where that number came from, but that was always the number I had in my head. It's 300.
100%. That's insanity.
Yeah. No, I agree. And again, back to what you want. And, the other potential challenge with Second Paradigm that often I think goes overlooked is that, this approach is potentially dangerous. And not just because, we talked about diagnosing and such, but it's more to do with the fact that if you see subluxation as the cause of their symptom or condition, then you may be ignoring the fact that maybe there's other causes, right? Or at least other contributing factors. And, you're using Joe Rogan as an example, kind of bashing on chiropractic, but they're right. And this is where, we put ourselves in the wrong and opened ourselves up for, this type of, repercussion from, other people looking at chiropractic from the outside in versus, if we look at the third paradigm model, I say to people all the time, I don't know what the cause of your problem is. I don't know what the major point of this is, but I know that you have a problem. My tests tell me there's a problem, and this problem is a part of this issue. I don't know to what degree, but it's probably the part of a lot of different issues in your body, and it's up to you if you want to take time to correct this problem over here. And when you can do that and start to build the model around that, I'll tell you, one of the biggest pros to a third paradigm model is the retention. The retention is, from my experience, much, much higher. It's much, much more easily driven by the normal standard communications that come along with a third paradigm model versus, the retention that comes when you're telling people that subluxation is the cause of their problem. And then, of course, as long as their problem goes away and doesn't come back, you're going to get retention in those cases. But when the problem comes back, the question is, well, what did you do wrong? Why is this not working anymore? And you've opened yourself up for, a mass exodus in your practice. Of course, you need a lot of new people in to sustain that. So retention is one of the big things. And along with retention comes maybe, Horatio, the most valuable part of a third paradigm practice, and that's the opportunity to, instill the chiropractic principle into people's lives over the long haul.
Yeah, that was great. The point that you made, couldn't have said it better myself. And you're right. This has, I think, been the most rewarding part of practice. When, for example, when somebody comes in, they're like, hi, I've been getting the flu shot for the last 5 to 7 years. I'm just not going to get it this year. I'm like, okay, well, great. Because clearly I don't talk about vaccines in the practice. I'm like, okay, well, Norma, how come? She's like, it just doesn't make sense. It just doesn't make sense. My body should be able to heal. And even if I get the flu, I have an immune system to fight it off. I'm like, perfect.
No, that's
this is really the way, I think we have I think a lot of times it comes from a lack of self-esteem, the way that our profession approaches this, God complex type of thing. But I think if you're really patient and if people stick with you, eventually some of them are actually and truly going to get it.
Right. No, I agree.
They're not going to get it by you telling them that subluxation is causing their problem. They're going to get it by having, some struggles and some ups and downs and striving to understand why their body's doing certain things. And that's where really third paradigm chiropractic shines.
Well, yeah, and when you recognize what the truth is in the situation, there's power in being authentic with people. And there's, power in just telling them the truth and knowing that, some people are not going to accept that. And if you, and that only makes you a better communicator, only makes you more masterful in trying to, own this process. So that, for me, that's the game, right? I know for you too. I mean, that's the part I love is how do I get this person on day one who walked in with, an achy shoulder to on day two recognize that maybe there's something bigger going on and, they're ready to engage in this process. And to me, those are far bigger wins than somebody coming in and says, oh yeah, I totally get it all. I'm in for life. I mean, that's great. And, we still get those cases. We have great referrals in our practice, and that's wonderful, and it definitely makes it very easy. But it's like, any of us, we love the struggle too. I love the challenge of it, and that's what makes you better. The other piece of this is, you're starting to get more and more cases like the second case I just talked about. People come in and say, this makes sense. I'm pre-sold. I mean, it makes life a lot less stressful, I think, in that third paradigm model.
Sure. It makes your practice more stable. I can't tell you how many interviews I've heard on podcasts with high volume chiropractors that have got hurt or injured and they've had to take a month off of practice and their practice collapsed in a month.
Right. Yeah. I'm just looking at the date here. It's December 22nd as we record this, and I'm not back in practice till January 9th.
Yeah. We're Thursday and Thursday for the next couple of weeks only because I get bored and I want to go in and have some fun and see people, and it's just awesome. It's so stress-free.
Yeah, we're open. It's just the associates are going to take care of everything, and everything's going to run as if. It's going to be no different than if I was there, and that's my win for this year. So, the negative side, let's not sugarcoat it. The negative side of third paradigm is I think it's a lot harder. I think that the sales process is longer. It's more difficult. It's counterculture. It's we're kind of breaking the golden rule here in marketing is there's not a market. I mean, there is a market, when we start to realize what that market actually is, but it's definitely tougher. The marketing skill set is more difficult, and the sales skill set is far more difficult. And at the core of it, you just need more developed self-esteem to manage success in a third paradigm model.
Yeah, you have to be, and I don't mean technically, I mean in communication and self-esteem, you need to be at a much higher level to make this work, legitimately.
No question. And that kind of leads us into some of these principles, Cratio. So assuming you want to transition after all that into the third paradigm model, or if this is the first time you've really thought about this, and now you're thinking, oh, shoot, now I need to, because some of the things that we discussed are now highlighting your cognitive dissonance. Hopefully you won't be able to sleep at night until you actually figure this out. The number one principle that we're going to share with you is the most important, and it's an extension of the whole self-esteem piece, but you need to be solid on the third paradigm model, right? You need to be clear on what that is, not just the basics that we talked about today, but you need to be very, very, and have a very deep understanding of what it means to practice in a third paradigm model, not to the point of, having it perfected. And I think that's a caveat here. I'm not suggesting that you take the next 10 years before you start transitioning, but I am suggesting that, you need to be solid on this, because Cratio, assuming someone isn't solid and they try and make this transition, I mean, that's just a recipe for disaster.
Yeah, I think I totally agree with that. It has to start with your beliefs around chiropractic. Mm-hmm. Because for me, and I know for you too, there was just no other way. Like, somebody might be listening to this podcast and they might be saying, well, I really want more stability in my practice, so I want to do this third paradigm thing. I'm saying that's a very shaky belief to get in. What I'm asking you to do is to really look at your beliefs around chiropractic and what it is that you're delivering as a product, as a service, as a set of principles. And if you find yourself leaning more towards that this is what you believe, then this is the path that you have to take. This isn't a tactic or a gimmick. This is just the way that we are.
Right. That's why I had a longer laugh there when you said that, because, that statement sounds like so many of my consultation calls, right? When I speak to people about working together. Yeah, I mean, that's exactly it. It seems like you guys really got this figured out. I'd love to do workshops. And what you guys say sounds exactly like what I want to say. So let's go ahead and do it. And, of course, that's the chuckle is, okay, but, here's the hidden truth behind all of this. And that's exactly what you said. You need to be solid on this. You need to know what your beliefs are. You need to be congruent. You need to be willing to put in the effort. This is not going to be easy. It's going to come with major struggles. But on the other side of the bridge, is the blue ocean. On the other side of the bridge is the dream. And when I say dream, it doesn't mean 1,000 specific office, although it could, right? You could definitely do that. But what it means to me is a practice that's built on integrity, a practice that, you get to love, a practice that is not crazy stressful. That's the practice that, I'm selling to the people that we're going to be working with. So that said, let's assume that's in place. The second principle is absolutely important, vital. I cannot stress this enough. What you need to do as you start to develop the day ones, the day twos, the systems, and all the other tactical pieces, start with your new people. Do not screw this up on your old people. Do not mess up your cash flow. Don't worry about the old people yet. Start with every single new person. So every new person that comes in, they get your new practice. They get Third Paradigm Chiropractic. They get Third Paradigm Communication. They get the new systems. They get everything. The old people, for now, leave them alone.
Yep. I mean, you'll have more experience commenting this one. That one just makes sense to me.
This is don't mess it up. Huge pitfall, right? You get super excited. You're like, oh my God, I have all these people. I want to get them all on board. And all of a sudden you start, implementing protocols. Maybe you can speak to this, though, Cratio, from a psychological perspective, or maybe from a marketing sales perspective. Think about what you're doing, right? You've made an agreement with somebody based either consciously or unconsciously or overt or covert. You've made this agreement based on a second paradigm model, and then all of a sudden you're going to swap the agreement out without making a new one?
Yeah, if that's something that you're thinking of doing, and again, I think this is one of the ones, you need a pattern disrupt for the person coming in. People come in, they are not thinking about you. They are not thinking about your practice. They're coming in for their checkup because they've always come in for their checkup. Mm-hmm. So if this is going to be a big conversation to have, you need to either put them in a room, you need to do something that's different that makes them think, why is this happening right now? And actually makes them pay attention.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I think, the issue is they're not coming in for a checkup. They're coming in for an adjustment.
Right.
So I think about just that single principle right there. Right. So imagine this. You have people coming in for an adjustment. I got to go get adjusted. And all of a sudden, now you're talking about checking them, and now you're talking about analyzing the spine, and you're talking about, okay, we're going to set up new agreements. And it's just going to create a dissonance in their mind. They're going to say, what the heck is going on here? You're only creating the potential for dropout and drop-off in your practice. So I'm not saying you don't have these conversations, right? But that's an exact point as to why you need to set up some type of strategy. So let's assume you've started the new protocols and you've done this for a few months with all of the new people, and you're really liking how you're doing and your skill set is improving. And the reason you do this is because if you mess it up with the new people, it's not as big a deal, right? The old people are already generally committed to something, whatever that is. Right. They're coming in, they're providing cash flow. You don't want to disturb that, right? That's your safety net. That's your protection until you get this in place and you make that transition. You kind of think of it like, diluting, your cup of coffee with cream. It's just, you go a little bit at a time. Eventually, it's going to be enough, but you can't just pour it all in there. That's going to be a big problem. So start with the new people. In terms of old people, though, you kind of explained this a bit, but the Starbucks principle, Horatio.
Yeah, the Starbucks principle is just start changing your language, right? So when somebody's new to Starbucks, they've never been there before, they come in, and what do they say? They're confused, right? So there's uncertainty. They don't know what to expect when they say, I'll just have a large coffee. To which the barista, notice how even the language is different. It's not the server, it's the barista, which Starbucks has made that term up, says, sure, one venti coffee. So what you've essentially done, and why this is so important, is you didn't make them feel stupid for not saying the wrong things, but you corrected their language, and now they understand that at Starbucks or at your practice, it's not called an adjustment, it's called a checkup. And over time, they will start calling it a checkup, and they'll start calling it a correction. And they'll start using the language that you instill in them, which is a way to start moving them towards this new belief system that you're adopting.
Right. No, I think that's a great principle, is just start communicating with them very covertly, right? Don't reprimand them for using wrong language. They don't know what the right language is at this point. Just use the new language and start to move them in the right direction, which leads us to number 4, make sure every single person has an examination scheduled. So in the case, what we advise is get them scheduled for an annual examination, right? And use that as an opportunity and a springboard to have a new agreement with people. And, I know about this because we've helped transition a pile of practices. I've had some transition in the existing practice that I'm in. And the way we managed it was through the annual examination. So after a series of months, implementing old, new lexicon with old people, introducing the exact protocols we wanted with all new clients, then we'd start to hit a bunch of these annual examinations, and then that's where you can have a new conversation. Hey, you might have noticed things have been different here recently, and, my advice is we've always given people the option. If they wanted to continue doing exactly what they were doing before and they were an old client, I advise our offices to just allow them to do that. Right? It's up to you. Unless you want to completely disturb your practice and get rid of people, that's an option. Otherwise, you give them new options. Now, sometimes at this point, there's a financial issue. And we've seen lots of practices where people have come in and the old model had, unlimited care plans, fixed fees, all that type of stuff where people were paying minimal, $10 a visit, paying $2,000 a year for 400 visits or whatever they were doing as a family. And so this annual examination gives you a chance to have a conversation about finances, but we've always given people an option to kind of move into the new model, move into the new fee system. And, that way they can dismiss themselves if it's not going to be a good fit for them. They can stay on the same path they're on, or they can jump into the new program.
Yeah, that's great. The one thing that I would add, just as a mindset thing, is one of the things that I've noticed, and again, please correct me if I'm wrong, the best practitioners, the people who see the most, who are just excellent, they never hit an autopilot status with any practice member. If you're ever thinking, oh, so-and-so is good, that's like the recipe that's the loser mentality.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Right, like, how many times have we been burned on that still, right? We still suffer from that.
Yep.
It's you know, I can think of cases right now where I'm in the process of a couple really great cases, a couple great families that I'm trying to get back on track. Yeah, because I see them drifting, and I thankfully I've noticed it, you know, early enough that I think we're going to be able to solve the issue. But again, you have to be hyper aware of every single family and person that you're taking care of.
Yeah, I 100% agree. Yeah, that's just something that, like, the best, because I remember in the past, you know, Jamie, when we were going through this, like, so-and-so would just leave, like, the annuals was coming up. I'm like, perfect, this one's in the bag. And they're like, no, they don't show up for their assessment, and they just drop out of care. And I'm like, man, where do we lose it? And when you start paying attention, you can see the early signs. So you can course correct.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a huge pitfall, isn't it? It's definitely, it's one that, again, we want you to be hyper aware of, and leads us to the last one. And this is, you know, make us somewhat tactical in terms of what to do next, but we do this with our offices, and this is why I think it's really valuable. After they've got a lot of this stuff in place, they start to make the transition, getting through their annual examinations. But a rebrand, relaunch can be a really good platform to at least allow and make your community aware that something changed. Right now, we don't advise you do this on day one of transition, but down the road, the rebrand relaunch, it gives you a really nice platform to do an open house. It gives you a nice platform to have some new workshops. It gives you a nice platform to engage people in a conversation. And if you look at companies like Apple, you know, they're a great example of this just from a product standpoint. Every product doesn't just trickle out. There's a launch. Right, and the launch comes with it, comes attention, it comes energy, it comes engagement, and that's the opportunity for sales. It's the opportunity for, you know, getting people excited, and you can use that same concept here, Kreischer, in the rebrand relaunch to really kind of put a stake in the ground and say, okay, so here's who we are now. Because it's not just about the people that come into your practice and getting old people on board and transitioning new people. It's then making sure that your community within your practice understands who you are. And that's what branding really is. That's the point of branding and people knowing your brand. And I've seen the power of that in our office over the first 2.5 years of this new office. We're just hitting the point where people know who we are. People know what we're about. And this has been a very difficult process, and it's one that requires a ton of consistency. So, you know, I'm not suggesting you can just launch an open house and put up a couple new logos and it's going to be great, but that is a really good platform to start that process and make sure your community knows what your stake in the ground is. So going forward, you know, you have everything in place to start to practice in this third paradigm model and let your community know what you're all about.
Yep. That's awesome, Jamie.
So, Kreischer, we've talked about a lot of stuff today. As you know, highlighted the difference between second and third paradigm, hopefully made the case that I think third paradigm is really the strong way to practice if you want certain things. If not, if the second paradigm model fits for what you're looking for, then of course I say go full out on that and recognize what some of the challenges are going to be. And then we gave you some principles and a tactic here to put that into place. If you have any questions about it, as always, we'd love to tackle those. I know this probably brought up a lot of things for people, and send them our way. Post them to the Facebook page or shoot us an email. We're happy to take those on. Check out the show notes because I'll put in there a couple things we talked about today. Specifically, I'll throw in there the Power by Design manual. And Kreischer, I think this is a great tool for people to have to see some of the languaging around third paradigm chiropractic and see what it is that, you know, as a general template, what we would share with practice members in our system and in the Life by Design system. So I'll put that in there for download. And guys, thank you so much for listening, and thank you for being a part of Life by Design for chiropractors, the voice of reason in chiropractic.
Welcome to Life by Design, the podcast for chiropractors. Here's your host, Dr. Jamie Richards.